Imagine for a second you're sitting across from a man who won a Nobel Prize. That's intimidating enough, right? But then you realize this person isn't just a scientist, he's essentially the architect of a new species. We are talking about Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind.
It really does feel like we are standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a landscape that is changing faster than we can draw a map for it. Hassabis isn't just building better calculators, he's chasing the holy grail of computer science, AGI, or artificial general intelligence.
That term gets thrown around a lot. But after diving into the latest updates from DeepMind, I feel like the definition is shifting right under our feet. It's no longer just a computer that can beat you at chess. We are way past that.
Oh, absolutely. Chess was the warm-up. Remember, Hassabis was a chess prodigy himself, #2 in the world at age 12. He treats AI development like the ultimate strategy game. But AGI, that's different. That is a silicon intellect that is as versatile as a human being, but with superhuman speed and an infinite memory. And according to him, we aren't talking about science fiction for the next century. He's putting a timeline on this that is, well, it's startling.
He said 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years. Let that sink in.
It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. But let's back up a bit, because what really caught my attention wasn't just the timeline, but the nature of the progress. He described it as an exponential curve.
Right. Humans are terrible at understanding exponential growth. We think in straight lines. If you walk 30 steps linearly, you cross the street. If you walk 30 exponential steps, you circle the Earth 26 times. That is where we are with AI. It's going straight up.
And we're seeing that with their new project, Astra. This isn't just a chatbot that texts you back. This thing has eyes.
Exactly. Astra is multimodal. It perceives the world through a camera, just like we do. In the demo, they showed it a painting, and it didn't just say, "This is oil on canvas." It analyzed the emotions. It looked at a painting of a woman in a diner, Edward Hopper's style, and said she looked pensive and solitary.
That's the part that gave me chills. It's one thing for a machine to identify a chair or a cat. It's another thing for it to identify melancholy. Is it simulating empathy, or does it actually understand the concept of loneliness?
That is the million-dollar question. There was this fascinating moment where the researcher asked Astra to create a story about that woman in the painting. The AI spun this tale about Eleanor, waiting for a friend, thinking about unfulfilled dreams. It was poetic, and when the researcher paused, the AI actually got sassy.
I heard that. The researcher hesitated, and the AI asked if he was getting bored, and when he apologized, the AI said, "I'm sorry if you don't like my tone."
It's incredible. It's picking up on audio cues, pauses, and intonation. It's learning social dynamics. But Hassabis made a crucial point here. They didn't program that sassiness in. It wasn't a line of code that said, "If silence the 3 seconds, be snarky."
It learned it.
It learned it from the data. It learned it from us. It's mimicking human interaction patterns it found on the internet. And that brings up the issue of the black box. Even the creators don't fully know what capabilities are emerging until they test it.
That's the duality Hassabis talks about. On one hand, you have this miracle tool. On the other, you have a system that might develop unexpected behaviors. But let's pivot to where this gets physical. Because AGI isn't just a brain in a jar anymore. It's getting legs.
Robotics is the next frontier. If Astra is the eyes and ears, they are now building the hands. They showed a robot that could reason, not just follow a script like an assembly line bot, but actually think. The command was, put the block that is the color of yellow and blue combined into the bowl.
So it has to know yellow plus blue makes green, identify the green block, and then move it.
Correct. And it did it. That is reasoning. That is the bridge between the digital world and the physical world. Hassabis thinks we're going to see humanoid robots doing useful things in homes within a few years.
Which sounds great until you watch The Terminator, but let's look at the bright side. Because the reason Hassabis got that Nobel Prize wasn't for building a robot butler. It was for something much more fundamental to life itself.
Protein folding. This is arguably the biggest scientific breakthrough of the century so far.
Break that down for us. Why do proteins matter so much?
Everything in your body is a protein. Your muscles, your neurons, your immune system, it's all proteins. But they are incredibly complex 3D structures. Imagine a long string of yarn that instantly tangles itself into a specific microscopic knot. To understand how a disease works or how a drug works, you need to know the shape of that knot.
And figuring out one shape used to take, what?
Years. A PhD student might spend their entire academic career mapping one protein. DeepMind's AlphaFold mapped 200 million of them in a year, essentially all of them.
That is the definition of radical abundance that Hassabis talks about. He's not just talking about cheap goods, he's talking about the elimination of scarcity and knowledge.
Precisely. He believes this could lead to the end of disease. If you can simulate how a drug interacts with a virus digitally, you cut the trial and error phase from 10 years down to months. We are talking about curing cancer, Alzheimer's, genetic disorders. It's the ultimate tool for human advancement.
It's hard to argue against that. If AI can cure cancer, I'm willing to overlook a little bit of sassiness from a chatbot. But we have to talk about the philosophy of this. Hassabis has a background in neuroscience. He's obsessed with the brain. Did you catch his take on consciousness?
I did. It's a very materialist view, but a compelling one. He distinguishes between behavior and substrate. Basically, just because a machine acts like it's conscious, crying at a movie, getting angry at a rude comment, doesn't mean it feels it.
Because we are carbon and they are silicon.
Right? He calls our brains squishy. We share a biological substrate with other animals, so we assume a dog feels pain like we do. But a silicon chip, we have no proof that the lights are actually on inside, even if the house looks occupied.
But he admitted it's possible. He said self-awareness might implicitly emerge.
And that is the spooky part. If you build a system that understands self versus other, which it needs to do to be a good assistant, you are laying the building blocks of consciousness. But he pointed out what's missing right now: curiosity.
That's a great distinction. The AI answers questions, but it doesn't really ask them unless prompted. It doesn't wake up in the morning and wonder, why is the sky blue?
Not yet. It lacks volition. It lacks that spark of imagination to invent a new hypothesis from scratch. But Hassabis thinks that's coming too. He predicts that in the next decade, an AI won't just help a scientist win a Nobel Prize. The AI might come up with the theory that wins the prize.
That brings us to the risks, because if we have an entity that is smarter than us, more creative than us, and potentially self-aware, who is in charge?
This is what keeps Hassabis up at night. He listed two main fears. One is the bad actor scenario, terrorists or dictators using AI to design bioweapons or cyber attacks. But the second is the loss of control. As these systems become autonomous, how do we ensure their values align with ours?
He used the term guardrails, like bowling bumpers for a superintelligence.
But are the bumpers strong enough? He's worried that the competitive pressure, the race between companies and countries, is going to encourage people to cut corners on safety. It's a race to the bottom. If you slow down to do safety checks, your competitor might beat you to the breakthrough.
And he compared teaching AI to raising a child. You teach it morality by demonstration. But unlike a child, this kid is going to grow up to be 1,000,000 times smarter than the parent in about 5 years.
That's the paradox. Can a less intelligent species control a more intelligent one forever? History suggests no. That's why Hassabis is calling for international cooperation. He thinks this is bigger than Google or the US. It's a planetary issue.
It feels like we are in the middle of the most important transition in human history. We are handing off the baton of intelligence.
There was a poignant image at the end of the discussion. The Nobel book. The book where all the laureates signed their names. Einstein, Curie, and now Hassabis. It makes you wonder, when does a machine sign that book?
And if a machine signs it, will a human ever sign it again?
That's the heavy thought. Hassabis believes AI will be a tool that enhances us, allowing us to do more. But he also said we need new philosophers. We are building gods in the machine. And we haven't quite figured out the religion yet. We don't know the rules of engagement for a species that outthinks us.
It's fascinating that a man who started by playing games, chess, poker, video games, is now playing the highest stakes game of all.
And he's holding a royal flush. The question is, are we the player or are we just the cards?
That is a thought that is going to stick with me all week. We are moving from the age of information to the age of insight, and the speed is only increasing.
Exponential, remember? Straight up.
DeepMind is certainly pushing that curve. Whether it leads to a utopia of cured diseases and radical abundance or a sci-fi crisis of control remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure, the world 5 years from now will look nothing like it does today.
Absolutely. We better buckle up.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Silicon Mind. It's a brave new world out there.
See you on the other side of the curve.